And as it flows, I am letting go. Time of refreshing, come before you singing. In your presence, oh, but I wanna drop your presence. And I don't want just to read about your presence, even just a small moment. Your presence, I know you'll never know. Your presence, I can live without.
Good evening, everyone. I'm hitting buttons twice. I'm sorry I'm a little bit behind this evening. As you can see, my partner in, I don't want to say partner in crime, my partner in ministry, Jonathan Rushing, is off having a nice little reprieve. We did a massive recording, which I might, if you guys want to come in here after this stream, I might start going through those files. So if you want to see the live orchestra recording that we did live, listen to some of the audio, maybe I'll do that live. So if maybe if I can get Chris Caps and a couple other folks in the comments want to see that. So anyway, so thank you for joining us tonight for Soul Vitamins. Like I said, Jonathan and I missed last week because we were getting everything ready for that orchestral choir concert ministry event that we did at Campbell Church of God. So if you were in the Charlotte area and you got to be a part of that and you got to be blessed by it, glad you came. So I was actually going to air this interview last week, but we had so much we were trying to get together for this. It didn't come together, and I'm glad because I got to today to do this episode by myself today, and I was like, I don't know what I want to talk about. My brain is just mush after the weekend. So I was like, I had that interview with Dave Cleveland and my brother Kris Crunk. So this is an incredible interview with two of the top level. And it's funny. So I went to school, as you'll see, with Kris Crunk. I didn't know he was nominated for 4 Grammys. So he is a Grammy nominated Dove Award winning music producer, musician, tremendous brother in Christ, and solid dude. And then Dave Cleveland, if you don't know who Dave Cleveland is, you're about to find out he's also at that level. I mean, like, these guys are in the upper levels of the music industry. So if you're a musician, go ahead and hit share. I'm going to start this interview and then go on Facebook so I can share it myself. So here we go, y'all. Let's go. Yeah. Oh, yeah. 100%. All right, guys. So we're here with my brother from another mother and many, many years, Kris Crunk, his partner in crime, Dave Cleveland. If you're into the music industry, into music production, especially concerning Christian, Southern gospel, and a lot of anything coming out of Nashville the last 20 years, you probably have listened to something by these guys. And Chris and I have been talking about doing this for a while. And I think I've been following Dave because of Chris. I mean, I knew who you were before you guys were working together, but once you guys were working together, I'm like, okay, let's send a friend request. 150 mutual friends. So I'm pretty sure we're friends on social media, but you probably walked by each other when I was living in Nashville, but didn't know. Yep. So I want to talk about kind of how you guys got to where you were. Just get your, the quick bio. We don't want the full behind the music, because I'm sure we have funny stories and things that I want you guys to share with, especially Christian musicians, but especially young and up and coming musicians. It's actually something I'm wanting to go back and do with Tom Hemby, because we did a podcast during COVID, and those of us, man, that are starting to get some gray hairs, we have. I don't think we're aware of how much experience and wisdom and knowledge that we've accrued that would really be a benefit to younger musicians and people that are wanting to do what we do, and we can really help them avoid the pitfalls, but especially for Christian musicians. So let's start with Chris. So Chris, I met you at Lee University, 1998. So kind of walk us through, pretty quickly, like where'd you start? Obviously you probably started playing in church, and to what you do now for those that don't know who you are.
Yeah, I actually started when I was younger. I was in a Birmingham has this really big voice choir, big famous thing, and I really didn't know anything about anything. And I had, I went to a pretty big church at the time, so there was really good music and I was around it. But I started doing that. And then around high school, it was really only until I think my sophomore year of high school, so freshman, somewhere around there, I started taking piano lessons and just, took to it pretty quickly. Especially I had a teacher who wasn't just classical, but he taught me chords and how to, some basic number chart kind of stuff back then. And it was able, I really saw myself moving on pretty quickly with that. And then my junior year, my choir director said, "Hey, there's a competition at the church I was in that got you a scholarship to Lee if you won the thing." And I said, "Hey, I want to do piano." And he said, "Well, you're not good enough. You'll lose," which was true. And he said, "But there's this keyboard competition."
Such honesty. Hold up. You had a teacher that didn't call to you and tell you you're the best and people are going to accept you. He said, "Yeah, Joker, you got to go." As Miles Davis said in that very famous, I don't know if you guys have seen that clip. He was like, "How do you think he sounds, Miles?" "You know how it sounds. He needed to take some practice."
Well, I definitely, I was very, I'd only been playing really 2 or 3 years. And, the guys in those piano competitions were going up and been playing since they're 4 years old, And so that was a really kind thing he did for me because it would have been pretty embarrassing, I think. And but I took to the keyboard. He said, "I got a guy who'll teach you how to program." And it's just one of those things that I think God just gives you where, I just could do it. It was like, oh, wow, this is what I should be doing. And by God's grace, ended up winning the thing. And that's how I got to Lee. It kind of opened the door for me to be at Lee. And when I got to Lee, I was in the Lee Singers for the most part. I was in Voices for a little bit before, but Lee Singers, and started playing. And even then, I really wasn't good enough. I just had to work really hard in college and practice a whole lot, pray a whole lot. And, I got through Lee, and then I went down to Atlanta with James Matchek. You know James.
Oh, yeah.
And I worked at his studio for about a year and a little over a year and a half. And it was wonderful. Pro Tools, I think we were on Pro Tools 4, something like that. And back with, we had ADATs too, and we had...
Oh, yes.
Instead of having keyboard synths in the computer like we do now, we had a room full of keyboards MIDI'd up, and boy, you better hope the power doesn't go out, because if you hadn't written your sounds down,
oh my gosh,
you're in big trouble, And so it was just a little bit of a different world, and I don't really miss it because everything was hard. It seems like, and it took forever.
Y'all, if y'all don't even know how honest that is the honest TRUUFFF truth.
Yeah, especially in that time, because it was this weird time where the music industry didn't know where it was quite going, if Pro Tools was the thing that was really going to stick, or, everybody was using ADATs, and those were nightmares. And when I came to Nashville, so after a year and a half, I really prayed and just felt like, I needed to go, wanted to move to Nashville, or at least try. I still didn't think, I was good enough, or but I was like, let's just try. And so Walt Malden directed the Lee Singers, and his cousin is Russell Malden, who was an orchestrator and producer in town and still is. And one of my, I went from employee to now he's, a very good mentor to mine, a really good friend, and a father figure to me still, which is great. But I had a breakfast with him and gave him a demo and some arrangements, and an hour later he called back and said, "Come to town. I'll get you a job in the meantime, but when I get my basement studio finished out, I want you to come work for me." So I was really blessed. And one thing he said in that meeting was, I said, "I don't think I'm good enough." He said, "Well, you'll never be good enough unless you come be around these musicians, because it's a synergy that you get off by just being around people like Dave Cleveland and going and sitting in sessions and just watching. Man, it makes you want to get better.
Yes.
And work really hard, but not from I don't know. It's like it's inspirational, so it just makes you want to do it. You don't sit there and, you don't have a pity party. You just get to work. It's just inspiring. Yeah. When you see how quick everyone is and how good you've got to get to and got to be, and and so he saw that potential, and he saw, I had ability obviously to get to that point, but he saw that, that I could take it on. And so I was with him for 9 years, and during that time, I was his engineer at the studio, and he owned Gear for Days, and so we got to rent anything pretty much we needed to, and So I got to work with great gear, great mics, great people. He was one of those that just, he's like, hey, I need you to mix a project for me. And I'm like, I don't know how to mix a project. He said, well, here's this guy's number, or here's this guy's number. Ask him some advice. Or here's a book. Go read it. And so, he threw me in the deep end.
Or everything, before there was a YouTube video for everything.
That's true. And but everyone in town, they were so generous with their knowledge and information. And, these engineers would just tell me, hey, I need to learn how to mic this. I got a guy coming over tomorrow. I've never done that before. Well, you just put the mic here, make sure you have this mic and this. So everyone was super generous, and I learned just so much. And then I was also doing programming for him, orchestral programming, which I had not really done before that. And he really, opened a whole new world in that respect. And then even arranging and learning how to orchestrate, being around that all the time, and choir arrangement. And I just, meeting different people. During that time, I met Phil Nash. We produced all the Stephen Curtis Chapman stuff back in the day, and he took me under his wing as well. And I got to work on a lot of projects with him, and just learned a lot from just really good people. And so when the 9 years kind of happened, we were at a crossroads where we just felt like, hey, it's time, push you out of the nest kind of thing.
Yeah.
And man, ever since then, God has just been so faithful. It's just been nonstop, and Dave can attest to that. And it's just been, just nonstop. And every step of the way, with maybe bigger projects or bigger opportunities, the Lord's always faithful to have you ready, I think. If you're willing to put in the work and willing to stay faithful in the small things.
That's right.
That's such a big key. It's just being faithful in the small things. I have an assistant now, and she's great talent, but that's what I say, faithful in the small things, because that's how if you can do the little things right, then the big things, you're going to be able to do those right too.
Yeah.
So, all along the way, God's just been super faithful. There were definitely some hard days, and there's definitely things music you might not love or whatever, different things, and you just got to enjoy those, and Dave's even taught me a lot about this. Every day, you go, okay, this is what God has put before me. Let's work unto him. Let's give our absolute best. And, and then God just, if you're faithful and even when you're not, sometimes he's still faithful.
He'll bless it.
To bless it and to make it grow and
yes.
But I'm super blessed to work with literally those. When I was a kid, I was one of the liner note kids, man. Every record I would just, who played this, who played that. And, even pretty early on, I was just really fortunate that I got to work with my heroes, and they were all great guys, which sometimes that's not the case,
Yeah.
The Bill Schnees of the world and Dave Cleveland's of the world and all these guys who I've seen on all these records. To call them my friends now is pretty awesome.
Which is crazy because Dave looks younger than you.
I know he does.
Oh man.
It's that baby face, man. He ain't rocking the beard, so
that's right. The gray beard.
It's a Bucky's diet I go for.
Yeah. My man's living off of brisket sandwiches and Bucky's coffee.
No.
So, and not for ego's sake, but just name drop some of the, obviously working with Russell, you were doing Benson, Brentwood, we went to school with Bradley Knight, but now you're working with Miss Taranda Green. What's some of the other artists that you're working with that somebody oh man, I've heard their stuff, or that they would recognize your work on?
I've got to work with OneRepublic, which was pretty cool. There's a group that's really big in Europe, 5 Seconds to Summer. They're from Australia. I got to work with them recently. Lauren Daigle, I did a thing for one of her live shows here, live tour things recently. I've got to work with some NFL teams, which is crazy. Like they'll call, hey, we need some music for this. And I think Dave's been a part of some of those as well. And then recently, Dave and I have been doing a lot of music for film and TV, sync work. And I, gotten on, just a bunch of cool shows, CBS Sports and I think Holey Moley, that funny golf game, all over that. And so just different shows and different things. So it's been pretty exciting just to, diverse. And even I've been able to work for a jazz label here lately. And so I've just gotten to work with Stephanie Block. She's an incredible Broadway star who's just been on everything. And I mean, if you know that world, you know her. And so just getting to work on things like that, which, I would never have thought I would ever be a part of that, but just getting to be a part of those is pretty exciting because, it stretches you and you get to be a part of just really good music, That
sounds like that's going to be your testimony, faithful in the Faithful in the little things, and the Lord will make you ruler over many.
Mm.
That's tremendous, bro. I was gonna say there was a little thing a little jazz ditty that you and I wrote in one of the practice rooms one day, and every once in a while it'll I'm like, that's it.
That's funny.
And then it goes. Like, one of these days, I'm gonna actually sing it into my phone and sing it to you. Hey, dude, remember we came up with this? Let's actually write a song.
Yeah, there was a lot of bad songwriting in that practice room, if I can recall. We probably had some good stuff too, but looking back on some of it,
that was one of the 13 ideas. I'm like, that one was good, and everything else was, either a complete ripoff or.
Hey, but we didn't have phones to waste our time. We just, at least we had that. We could just spend our time making music. So
that's it. All right, so Dave, let's get your same thing. Give us your story.
Oh man,
don't know you, kind of how you started, and all the high points into today.
Well, I think just hearing you guys talk about being blessed, and it to me it always comes down to the favor of the Lord on your life. He's the one that blesses and takes care of you, and Kris is right. You can't, number one, you can't outgive God. I know that, because He always gives back way more than we deserve, and I'm thankful for that. And so when I first started playing, I didn't grow up in a Christian family, and I started playing in clubs when I was 13. And I played in clubs until I was 20 years old. And when I was 20 years old, I pretty much had given up hope on life. I just didn't see any future for myself. And I was very depressed a lot and very bound by alcohol and drugs. And one day I went to see my dad, who I hadn't seen in a long time. He grew up the same way, played in clubs, had addictions, and I went to see him. And he met me out on the porch with a Bible. And he looked at me and he said, "Son, I know exactly where you're at. And I want you to know that Jesus loves you and He can give you a new life." And that just floored me. And that next day I asked Christ to come into my heart. And that changed the course of my life forever. And I can't, just because she's sitting here with me, driving the car, I cannot say another word about my life without mentioning my wife, Tammy, who I met as a teenager when I was 14 years old. And she literally saved my life several times through phone conversations, just talking me off the fence. And there she is right there. She's awesome. And
Angel. Guardian angel.
After just all the time that I didn't know who Jesus was, Jesus knew who I was, and He was taking care of me. And after I became a Christian, I got a call from a guy named Roger Breland, and the first thing he asked me was, "David, how's your walk with the Lord?" And I didn't know what to say. I just said, "Well, it could be better." That's all I could think of at the time. And he asked me to be in a group called Truth. And I went on the road with Truth for 3 years. The last year, Tammy and I got married. And so we traveled as a married couple with 20 other people on a bus for a year. But it was so awesome. In Truth, I learned how to be a musician, a better musician, because in the clubs, more was more. You always played more, faster, impress people, try and show people what you have at every step. And in Truth, I was taught, play reserved, play in the pocket, play the part for the song. Don't overplay. Think about what everything else is, what else is going on around you. What are the vocals doing? What are the keyboards doing? What's the drum pattern? What are the horns doing? All that stuff. I began to listen and began to filter through those things and find guitar parts that would work inside the song. And that was the lesson that I learned as a young musician, and that prepared me for my session work in Nashville. And so anyway, try to be quick.
No, that's good.
Oh man. after 3 years with Truth, Tammy and I went back to Virginia. That's our hometown. That's where we live right now. And we became youth pastors at our church, Living Word Fellowship. And I kind of put the guitar down, and that wasn't going to be my focus anymore. I felt like God had said, you know, play your guitar, but it's not your focus anymore. It's not the main thing that you do. So, so we were youth pastors for 2 years, and then April 19th, we went to Nashville to visit a friend of mine, Joe and Cheer Hogue. And while we were down there visiting, he was producing a record, and he said, "Hey, I got a guitar here. Would you put a part on this record?" And I'm like, "Oh man, I'm not even playing guitar anymore. Like I was scared to death to put something down." And so anyway, he goes, "Man, I just need something in this verse. Just put a little picking part." So I went in and did it, and it was almost like God just went, "Boom, you're supposed to do this." And I was like, "Okay." And Tammy agrees, right, Tam? So we had just bought a house in Virginia. We rented it out. I had a classical guitar, I had a Zion guitar, and I had a Fernandez Telly, and I had a solid state amp. And we moved to Nashville with that. And I was like, woohoo, here we go. I had the worst gear in the world that you could imagine to try and be a session player. But it's not about that. It's about
the gear.
It's like the Lord told us to do it.
Yeah.
And so we did it. And we trusted him. And we went and we moved with nothing. We had nothing. We had no contacts other than my friend Joe. And actually, there's another guy, Chris Thomason, that I had met along the way. So we get there, and I start getting these one-off sessions. And then the next thing I know, I get a call from Twyla Paris. And she was like, "Hey, I need somebody for this Christmas tour. Do you play mandolin?" Yes, I didn't play mandolin, but I would learn. She was like, "Can you play upright bass?" Yes. I had to go. I rented all this gear to go do this Christmas tour with Twyla just because I knew I could figure it out, you know. And of course, the guitar stuff I was able to do. But after that, Twyla asked me back to do some tours with her. And then while she was on sabbatical, I get a call. "Hey, David, this is Steve Chapman. I heard you playing with Twyla Paris, and we're getting ready to do some big festival dates. And would you be interested in coming out?" I'm like, "Absolutely." But I did not believe it was Stephen Curtis Chapman on the other line. I thought it was a friend of mine messing with me. But turns out it was Stephen Curtis Chapman. And so that led to the Great Adventure Tour. And we did that tour. And then I was going to do Heaven in the Real World tour, but Twyla came back. And this is something to think about. I told Twyla that when she came back off her sabbatical, that I would be there because she's my first commitment. Well, in that interim, I became an integral part of the Stephen Curtis Chapman band and what that was going on. And Stephen wanted me to continue on to this other tour, which was taking Stephen even further up as far as popularity goes. But I knew my commitment to Twyla, and I told Stephen that, and we both prayed about it and agreed that was the right thing to do. That would honor God. Sometimes you just don't take the bigger thing because it's the bigger thing.
Right.
Yeah.
Where's your heart? Where's your commitment to the Lord? Because if I'm relying on the Lord for favor and for prosperity, then I need to listen to him and I need to honor my commitments, even if it hurts me. You know what I'm saying? Or hurts my pocketbook.
Yeah.
That's the bigger picture. But the good thing is Stephen and I are great friends to this day. He's called me over the years for several things that I've been a part of. Of course, Twyla is my friend to this day. And then all the things that I did after that just led to session after session after session. And, you know, I won't keep going, but to this day, God has blessed me every day. I'm working, I'm writing. I just can't tell you how thankful and blessed I am because of his favor in listening to him and wanting to please God in everything I do. So
Yeah.
that's my quick little nutshell story.
No, and it's powerful because I mean, here you are, you're on the road headed back to Virginia, and so obviously you're at a point where you don't even have to be in town anymore, and that's a step of faith.
Yeah.
You know, a lot of people are like, well, I can't. I feel led to leave, but I can't because I'm gonna lose all my contacts. I'm gonna lose my work. Like, as the Lord leads, man. If the Lord takes you there, you're never gonna be hungry. You know,
That's right.
You're
That's
gonna be
right.
blessed everywhere that you go.
That's right. I believe that totally.
Yeah.
And it really is amazing with technology now. I mean, David and I will write, we'll spend all day writing on Zoom, you know, or whatever.
Oh, yeah.
FaceTime, you know, and it's, you know, it's like we're in the same room. So it's pretty amazing, amazing what you can do. And then obviously with the sending files and, you know, we can work anywhere, you know, work for a group over in Europe and just send the files to them. So that really, you know, I do think that maybe 10 years ago it might have been more true, or 15, that, yeah, you better be in Nashville if you want to do this, or New York or LA or London, one of those, two, you know. But now it's just a different world to where
Man.
people will find you if you're good. You know?
That's 100%, and that's another reason why I'm wanting to do this. With there's so many hidden gems in the, you know, especially believers that are working in the Christian music industry and the secular music industry, that it's, I think it's something with our generation, we just do the work. Mm-hmm. And the younger ones, man, they're out there with the cameras all day.
Yeah.
Good, bad, or indifferent. There's you know, there's pluses and minuses to it. But those of us that have been doing this for 10, 20 years, you know, it's like, hey man, get out the shadows. you know, because this generation needs mentors, it needs teachers, it needs people like us that the Lord has disciplined. He is, you know, and we're still walking with the Lord.
Yeah.
And you know, there's young church musicians that they're having to go to the world to get advice because they don't know who any of us are. So that's why I'm wanting to get guys like you and Tom Hemby and Leonard Jones and I interviewed Ron Canoli earlier this year and Paul Wilbur, and it's crazy how many church musicians today don't know who any of those people are. Yeah. They know the people that have been here for 5 minutes and that's it. I'm like, you don't know Andre Crouch, you don't know, you know.
You got to go back and listen, and there is a lot of wisdom and depth in not only the people but the words that they put in those songs. It's deep. It's really powerful.
Well, and this is the sad thing. This is something I've been harping on, and I think it's just something the Lord has called me to. That's actually funny. That's reminded me of a word I received. I don't know if your tribe in the church, Dave, but you know, the people that Kris and I hang out with, you know, they like to give you prophetic words, and sometimes it's like, yeah, you just had too much pizza. But every once in a while, you get one that's legit. But what I've noticed is it's funny, and it's really something only in church music, only amongst Christian music, that we push aside stuff that's older than like 10 years. You know, it's like, well, that's not relevant anymore. Meanwhile, in the world, I mean, they'll still roll out Elton John at a Grammys ceremony, you know, Tina Turner before she passed, or, you know, they're still singing Michael Jackson's music. They're still doing Jackson 5 music there. You know, they'll have Smokey Robinson come out and do something, music awards show. And especially in country music, I mean, country music, man, it's like, dude, they don't ever forget about you. But in Christian music, it's you did that 7 years ago? Well, you're not relevant anymore. Go away. We're not going to sing your songs anymore. And I'm like, why do we do this? Like, you think we're going to go to heaven and we're only going to be doing what was, this song came out right before right before the 1,000-year reign, or so we're not doing anything. It's like, man, I'm expecting, I think I was telling Kris this, or one of the guys at Lee a couple of weeks ago. I was like, man, I just want to make the music sections, because like we're gonna have guys like that played. You're gonna have Bach and Beethoven, you know, like these guys that they strive to write music for God, right? And like these are gonna be the guys possibly. And I'm like,
Yeah.
hey, man, maybe I'll get 17th chair in the section.
Yeah. Yeah. I always want to go to Beethoven or Bach and like, man, have you tried going from a 1 to a 5 to a 6 minor to a 4?
Dave, do you see my shirt?
That's,
Dave, do you see my shirt?
oh my gosh.
That's awesome.
I'm going to get your address, but before this is all said and done, hey everybody, there's my pajama pants, because you know when musicians we don't work with.
That's brilliant.
So I wrote this song like, and I love hearing, like, being on the phone with musicians when they see this shirt or when they hear the song, because I wrote this song earlier this year. We'll get into that here in a little bit, because I don't want to necessarily. I don't want to turn into a soapbox, because we all know the issues in Christian music, but we'll kind of get there. Tell us actually real quick how you guys connected. Tell us how you guys connected, because I mean, like, here you are, you're working with Lila Paris and Stephen Curtis Chapman. You're like kind of becoming session royalty, and then you got Kris just working with Brentwood Benson, and so how did those worlds collide? Because was it the church? Was it just working? Or
you want me to go, Dave?
I think, yeah, Kris, you explain that. That's good.
Well, it was a little bit of a slow burn at first, just because I was with Russell, and I would always see Dave on sessions, and after a couple, you get to know him, and we're doing 3 or 4 probably a month, and so I'm seeing Dave quite a bit, and just over time you get to know somebody. But then I started using him. I was doing some demo work and different things like you do when you kind of first come to town, and I was needing a guitar player on it, so I started using Dave for that. And then we have a mutual friend, Lowell Alexander, who has written, I think he's had 600 cuts, and he wrote a lot of those songs that you're talking about back in the day that just had great lyrics and words, and Rich Mullins, and we wrote with some of just anybody and everybody in 90s to 2000s CCM stuff, music. He would write for them, but so he hired me to program most of the tracks, and then he had Dave play guitar on it, and I think that was the first time we were like, oh, this kind of works, and we're onto something here. Yeah. And then I think one of the biggest moments was I was producing a record for a young man in Ireland, Christian worship leader, and just an awesome guy. And I made the tracks, and then hired Dave to come over for the day to do, just put guitars on it. And we just had a thing that just worked. It was a lot of fun. And then from that point on, as I started producing more and producing these different projects, and some were with like the Choral Print projects, and then others were just records or whatever. As I started to move more into that, we started to work together quite a bit. He would come up to the house, and so I would say over the last 10 years, it got to be really every month we're working together quite a bit. And then once we started writing cues together, then it ramped up to I think yesterday Dave told me we're getting close to our 600th song. So wow. So yeah. So that's some time spent. So I consider Dave more of a brother now, just because how much we work together. A friend, but and a mentor too. So I'm really blessed. But yeah, so that's sort of. Don't you think that's about right, Dave?
That's spot on, man. And are you guys still hearing me okay? I'm coming over the mountain right now.
It was perfect. As soon as he started talking, you froze up, and then you came in right at the tail end of it. So it was perfect. The Lord is good.
All right. Yes, he is. Well, I'll tell you this about Kris, and this is what happens in Nashville. I was doing all these sessions for Brentwood, Benson, Word, Integrity, all the different companies. And every time it started out as just a little bit. Hey, let's get Kris Crunk to do some extra stuff on this. And then it started to get into, we're tracking the band live. Yeah, Crunk could do that later. Okay. So Kris, he started getting a name for himself, because people like myself would go, hey, you need to get Kris Crunk to finish this track out, put all the cool stuff in. And so it just became a thing where every time we would be doing tracks, it'd be like, oh yeah, we got to get this to Crunk, and he'll finish it out. and make it better. Because that's what Kris does. And I've learned that with guitar with me. Everything I send him, I don't know if he replays it or not. Maybe he does, but
I don't do that.
it's just everything.
AI, baby. AI strikes again.
It all gets better when it goes through the Crunk filter. It just everything gets better.
Yo, you need to copyright that right there. Trademark that.
The
Crunk filter.
Yeah, it's all better. So that's and I love working with Kris because not only is he creative and musical, but he is technical too. He's got that side probably down better than anybody I know. I mean, if there was the equivalent of the what is it, the Gran Turismo competition for drivers, if we had programmers lined up, sitting in the seat, I think Kris would be he'd be winning that race every day. So it's just amazing. But he's a quality person. I can trust Kris. I trust his word. I trust the integrity of his heart, and I want to be around people like that. So
I mean, what Dave just said, and by the grace of God, go I and all of us here. But new kids wanting to get in this thing. I mean, yes, being a great musician is just the entry spot. That's just the begin. Like, that's sort of like, you got to be that. Like, okay, you got to be a good musician. You got to want to be getting better. You got to want to grow. But almost more importantly is, are you a good person? I mean, are you going to do your stuff that you say you're going to do? Or, I mean, it's basic life skill 101 things, but, are you going to turn your deadlines in on time? Are you going to, not rip people off or, be a jerk or just, I mean, all those basic things that, I want to work with people like Dave was talking about. I want to work with people who are my friends, people who I trust, who I know love the Lord, people that I know are going to, they're not going to phone it in. They're going to give their absolute best every time, no matter if it's something, big Rascal Flatts thing or whatever, big record thing, or if it's just
somebody's passion project.
Yeah, or a kids musical, custom kids musical.
Right.
In a lot of ways, that kids musical could impact more lives than the big single that's out there. And so you have to keep. And sometimes it's easy. Don't get me wrong. It's easy to lose that. Sometimes it's easy to lose that. But then every now and then you'll get sent a video or you'll get sent a clip of, hey, all these kids doing something like, oh man, that's awesome. Or you'll hear about how something that you were a part of really changed lives, and it's just a reminder. It's very easy when I'm in this room all day or in a studio all day. We all can get this way where we're just kind of, okay, I got this many songs to do today, let's knock it out, and then sometimes we forget the impact that it's having, which is pretty awesome.
Yeah,
that's a fact. I don't know. Did you, Dave? Did you want to add anything about that before I jump in?
I think that's exactly right. What he said. It's like if I'm playing on a Miley Cyrus record, I have the same drive and integrity to do my absolute best as I do for a country demo or a Christian demo or whatever it is. Everybody deserves 100% of whatever I have. If I'm there that day for you, I'm playing on it like this is going to be a Grammy winning record. It's just the way it is.
Yeah. I think that's something musicians coming up. And I guess even, I don't know about you guys. I kind of had that misconception that, you make it to whatever you think the big time is. It's like the Jim Brewers, what's success? What is success? Success to me was leather pants and having a kangaroo, but whether it's playing for thousands of people or playing on A-list records or working with, big name labels, I always thought like, okay, well, once you get there, or you just assume like, well, that's all you do all the time. And as a musician, it's like, no. I know guys that they're on the A-list tours, and when they're not on that tour, they're playing in a wedding band and they're doing, because it's like, otherwise, how are you going to eat?
Yeah.
And I think that's why that mentality is important, because if you start to slip, if you only give your best for that top gig, well, pretty soon you're not going to have top gigs like that, because if if your cheese is sliding off your sandwich everywhere else you go, well, nobody's going to call you. Like, well, I mean, he's fantastic, but he did garbage work for me. So I think that's very important.
And you never know who's going to hear that little small thing too. That's another important thing to remember, because there's times when I've gotten calls, like I work for Prestonwood Baptist, and I've gotten to work with them quite a bit over the last 5 or 6 years. And they heard some kids thing I had done, that I never thought, I didn't think a whole lot about it, just did it, kind of did the job that day. So you just never know who's going to be listening to what you're doing. And, I've got to do film score stuff with them. I've got to do just really fun stuff with them, and got to been flown out there to help write with them, and just awesome experiences that, if I had phoned in that little thing, which I in my mind might have thought was small, then again, it goes back to being faithful in those small things.
Well, do everything as unto the Lord. That's something I'm trying to teach my 10-year-old is, when you wash the dishes to the Lord. When you clean the house, you wash the house as unto the Lord. I told her, I said, listen, when you clean the toilet like Jesus is going to come in here and use it. That's
yeah.
I mean,
that's good.
Well, no, that was how I was trained in ministry and discipled in church and raised in my family. It's, if you do it wrong, you get to do it again. If you do it wrong again, you get to do like my grandmother, my father told me, and then my grandmother threatened me herself. She said, if you don't do those dishes right, I'm going to take every dish out of this house and you're going to wash everything.
Wow.
Boy, that'll get you. And if you carry that into your skill set, into your career, like you said, Kris, you're not going to phone it in. And I think we can use that to kind of transition. I think we can identify some of the problems and some of the issues in modern musicianship, especially concerning the church. And Kris and I, we might even have to do a whole side thing on this concerning specifically church. But we have, I don't know if you guys have seen the memes, like, here's the top 10 things you need to do as a musician. And it's maybe a third of that is musical, and everything else is like, hey man, show up on time, or be early, be a bench, be a nice person, be polite, don't be argumentative, smell nice, take a shower, brush your teeth. What do you see is like the most consistent thing that young musicians coming up need to hear, need to know, that you're like, man, this he's got so much, but he's not doing this. What is that do you think is lacking, is missing in this next crop of musicians and, musicians, producers, whatever?
Well, just real quick, Kris, I know you probably have an answer. Get out of your little circle that you're in on stage. I see so many musicians, they're so just in the little circle of themselves that they're not engaging with the congregation. They're not listening to the other players on stage. They're just concerned about, well, is my delay right? And I'm like, that is not what this is about. And here's the one thing I like about the simplicity of worship music, if you can take it there, is I don't want to look at a chart when I'm in worship. Okay, I think we need to raise the bar of musicianship and create musical moments that take us beyond. But in most of the churches, they can't do that. But I still see them so focused on their chart that they don't release and really worship when they're there. And that's what I'm trying to work on with some of the younger people at my church. Is I hope that they see that at some point I'm not looking at the chart at all. I'm taking enough effort to try and memorize what that chart is. And fortunately, a lot of it's very simple now, and you can memorize it. But it's like you can't be little pods on stage and nobody gets in your space. It's like you got to communicate, you've got to talk, you've got to be a team. And that's, to me, that's the thing I'm at least trying to mentor at my church.
I got a couple things for that, but I'm gonna let Kris go first.
Yeah.
Well, as far as like two things, as far as like those who want to be in the music industry or want to do this for a living, I was able to do some teaching at Union University, and I told those guys, I said, I think there's probably more jobs available now than there was even when I started 20 years ago. Maybe not in Nashville, but there's so many media jobs, or so many jobs where they need, an engineer to run the podcast or this or that. But there's a ton of jobs out there. But I've had a couple of people come over, young people come over, and they want to see what I do. They want to check it out. So I show them what I do. I'll play them a bunch of different styles, a bunch of different things, maybe show them how I do some things. And some of the answers I've gotten is like, wow, that just seems like a lot of work to get good like that. And I'm like, yeah.
Triggered.
But, like literally you go, what? Like, you go, well, of course, like, you have to. I mean, it's going to be more work than you even think, but so I just see there's a lack of, and the sad thing is there's more resources available like YouTube. And boy, I would have, maybe in some ways I think I'm kind of glad I didn't have all that, because I remember we were having to just figure it out. And if you really wanted to, you just had to dig in. But, even now, I mean, I use that stuff. I try to practice some YouTube cool thing that I find, and, I try to find, practice those all the time and get better. But I think that if you want to do it professionally, then, there was an attitude. I think at Lee, when we were there, we had some amazing musicians that have all gone on, to play in Nashville or be professionals at some level. And the consensus we had back then was, we're not good enough. We got to get better. We got to get better.
Yeah.
And in some of even my experiences with some, doing some teaching, the opposite seems to be the case now, where it's like, well, I'm so good. Why do I need to hear what you have to say? And that's not the truth, And so I just think that humility is, I think that all boils down, even with what Dave was saying, that it's not about you. This is about, the Lord, honoring him. And it's about, playing with others. And it's about, working hard unto the Lord, and he'll bless it. He'll bless it. And, one of the things that I remember that really impacted me, it changed my life, really. I'll never forget it. It was like probably my sophomore year at Lee, and Doyle Dykes. I know you know him, Dave.
Oh yeah.
Famous, guitar player. He came to Lee, and he said this. He used the Amplified Bible, but it was a scripture about, in Acts 2, about that power of the Holy Ghost will come upon you. And in the Amplified, the power meant he will increase your ability, your talent, and efficiency. And he said, pray that prayer if you want to get good at music. And I still pray it. I tell my kids to pray it, no matter what they're doing, because the Lord can increase the talent, which is just you can just do it, and then the ability is like the ability to learn and get better and go. And then efficiency, I'd love to practice an hour, but the Lord had give me 3 hours worth of practice or whatever. And so, that's something that he said he started praying when he was little, when he found that, when the Lord showed him that. And that's just something that I've always prayed. And, it's not a gimmicky thing, but it's really, I'm asking the Lord from my heart for those things to help me to get better. And so I just think that there's a humility that you just got to say, Lord, I want to get better. And then you put the work in and ask the Lord to bless the work. And I just think sometimes there's just a lack of wanting to get better. Now, those kids out there on Instagram who are 12 years old that want to do it, and I've watched every video, and they're smoking everybody. I mean, there are kids who are taking advantage of all those opportunities, and that's why they're amazing at what they do, because they're taking advantage. So, from those people who actually want to do this for a living, I just think that it takes that humility and ability to go, hey, I'm not there yet, because I'm certainly not there yet. And we all got to get better every day. And so, I just think that that's super important. And, I think one of the things that I see that I think really hurts musicians, younger musicians, is they are so confined to stems and to that live program and to the click track that
and the count, boys.
And the count and all that stuff.
Chorus.
They're locked in to, well, this is what this is going to be. And there's no room. Like, I know with Dave, when Dave and I work together, or, different, like in my church, Kristen Maddox, he was at Lee when we were there. He's at the church there, and we have a few others. My son plays drums, and he's been playing since he was 5th grade. So we don't have to talk to one another. We don't even, we know where we're going. If things change direction, we just go there together because we played together so much. And that's a beautiful thing when it happens. And I think that it is kind of goes to what Dave was saying. It's like, some of these things that make it maybe sound better, maybe to the audience, you're hearing all these stems and it sounds great and big. But then, when all that dies, what's left? Where are you really? Where is the band really?
Naked.
Is it snow?
Emperor has no clothes.
Yeah. Is it snake? Are you given? Is it snake oil? Is it? Because you can start thinking you're better than you are because it sounds good. When you really take all that away and you hear really where you're at, and then I think it's so important to turn that click off, put the stems away, and just be able to say, hey, let's do another chorus right now, or hey, let's sing a song that wasn't on the list, and we all can go there,
right?
And be led of the Lord, because sometimes the Lord, He'll change things in the moment. And and I'm so, even at our church, we have a plan, but there's many times where that plan will go out the window, and you just got to be ready to change and go with it. And those are such freeing. It's such a freeing thing that I think we had a lot of back in the day in college and in church, because we didn't have all that stuff back then, and so
you know what the difference was. So our generation grew up playing with the generation before us, whereas the generation, the younger ones now, they play by themselves. They don't play with us. And I think that's actually a combination of both of your points when you're saying, Dave, they need to get out of their circle. Yeah. And you're saying they need to be humble and they need to grow. Well, you can't do that on your own. But so much of our, even a medium-sized church, like the youth has their own band. They rehearse on their own. They do everything on their own. So they don't learn the old choruses. They don't learn any other songs. They just play what they're listening to, and they're never challenged and they're never mentored. I was at a mega church and I told them, I said, how are we supposed to pass this on to them when they never work with us? And everybody just kind of looked around and like, whoa, we didn't even think about that. And then they didn't change anything. They didn't change. I'm like, we're going to give them their own service. I'm like, they're going to do a Sunday, like fifth Sunday's Youth Sunday. It's a church of like 3,000-4,000 people. And I'm like, why don't they come and work with us and we do it together? This was a tremendously multicultural church, and they would do things a couple times a year where all of the, we'd all the Africans in Arabic, and they'd do everything together. I'm like, well, so we can do that with the ethnicities, but we can't do that with the difference in ages. It defies logic.
Well, it's funny that you say that. At the Lee reunion we just had a couple weeks back, I recognized this guy. I was like, I know him, and I walked up to him. I said, "Did you play bass at Metro back in the the '90s when I was coming up?" And he did. And we had the best moment, because I was taking drum lessons back then too, and so we had an amazing drummer, a professional drummer who was amazing, and he was my drum teacher. But then when he couldn't be there, I would fill in, and so I'm working with this bass player who's been on the road, he's been a pro, and so he's like, that doesn't feel good. Hey, change this kick, do this. Or I would play keys with both of them, or I would play, bass sometimes when he wasn't there. So I'm working with these great musicians the whole time I'm in high school, and so when we got to touch bass, and he got to see what I was doing and stuff. It really blessed him, and it blessed me to connect that again, because it was like, man, those times were so valuable to be around those guys. So it could kind of give you the secrets without having to learn the hard way. Like, hey, kick and bass, they need to hit at the same time. You guys need to do this and this and work on this. And that was such an inspiring thing as a young guy who was just wanting to do this, to see those guys at that level. And I think that you're right, that's missing, and it's so valuable. And I think that's where the danger can come in with, we've all done the jokes about the 4 chords, and we've all, like what you're saying, there is stuff, some of the stuff is kind of dumbed down. But I do think that as an older generation, sometimes we've got to move past what we like and to get to be able to work with them and not alienate them either. And so it's a tough balance, a tough line to draw there. But I think that that's just an important thing, because we've seen some of that too, where you just, I don't want to deal with that music, or I don't like that, so I'm not going to help them. And then how are they going to learn and how they're going to grow? So I think that humility has to go all directions, so that we can do what God wants and help train them to break out of some of that. But we have to be around.
100%, man. The ditch is on both sides of the road. And I'll tell you something that I've been thinking about, Dave, to your point of, because there's the playing in your circle, and then there's a friend of mine. He is just about done with in-ears. he understand. I mean, it's a helpful tool. It's great for your hearing. He said, but for the inexperienced musician, it's become a disabling crutch because, like you said, they turn themselves all the way up. They turn the click up, and it's, man, my delay was sounding great, and you're not listening to anybody else. So I think this is what I'm actually heading towards. I'm going to start pushing for my rehearsals to be on wedges. Because because it's like, hey man,
if you've never listened,
if you've never listened to anybody, because it teaches you to play dynamically, it teaches you to listen to your fellow band members, and to your point too, Kris, that talkback mic, that I'm growing to really despise it, because if you're not listening, that's why I have to yell at you. We had to pay attention, because if you didn't get something thrown at you while you were playing, you were going to get chewed out afterwards because you weren't listening and paying attention to whoever's driving the ship.
And that's real deal. I've been there.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Working with James or working with like Devin, it's Summerton and some of these places, man. Those guys, they wouldn't play. You had to. It wasn't in a mean way. It was in a we're trying to help you get better way. But there was like, you found out real quick if you were not listening, you weren't moving where they wanted to go. And, at the time, maybe I didn't love it, but I'm thankful for it now,
Yep.
Any thoughts on that, Dave?
Well, I guess for me, and this is music in general, and just being a human being and being a believer. I just taught a class with Tribeca the other day, and I looked at them, and the thing that I wanted them to know is, you are not AI. Mm-hmm. You are created, and you need to feel what you're doing. I said, if you've never heard a song that makes you cry, you need to go find that song. Yeah. Or if you've never heard a song that brings you joy where you just can't stop smiling, you need to find that song. You need to understand what that feels like. Because if you want to emote those same things, how are you going to even know you got there when you're doing it and you're playing it if you've never experienced that before in your life? Mm-hmm. And so I said, God has breathed his life into you. This is what we need. And it's more than the content that we're playing every week. It's our heart and our community and us coming together as a body and worshiping the one true God. That's what it's about. And so I'm trying to, impart that to people, because it's like the technology part of it. It's just, sometimes it's so cool. And, I want to, do this and that. I'm like, yeah, but if your heart is not engaged and you're not feeling the power of God in your life and being able to share that, then we're missing out on something that could be really amazing.
It becomes, it becomes empty. It becomes the jingling cymbals. He says, without love. And I shared this with, and if you guys haven't heard this before, I promise you're gonna carry this with you and quote it all the time.
Yeah.
This Canadian preacher, pastor, Court Chavis or something. He said this, and boy, it hit me like a ton of bricks, because at the time I was studying the power of music from not just a scientific and emotional and psychological standpoint, but also from a scientific and physics standpoint. I finally found some Christian resources where I could get into some of that deeper stuff, because a lot of it's dealing with New Age. But this guy said this thing. He said, music is the only thing in the earth that was not made in the earth.
Ooh.
Chew on that, baby.
That's good.
Wow. That's amazing.
This thing that we engage in, that Stevie Wonder said, music is a world within itself, in a language we all understand.
Yeah.
A language we all understand. Why do we all understand that? I believe he wove, we say he spoke it into existence, but yet the scripture says that the angels sang. It would make more sense. And if you understand, and this is something I've been learning, the reason that Hebrew children, when they get bar mitzvah or bat mitzvah back in the day, they had to recite the entire Torah. You know how they did that? They sing it.
Yeah.
Doesn't that make a lot more sense that you have Jacob and Esau, and it's a song?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Abraham and Isaac, and it's a song. So they sang the entire Torah. So it just makes so like when you're saying you're trying to impart, this is why, like Stevie said, it's a language we all understand. It all resonates. You know, you have to find something that resonates with you. Everything has a resonant frequency. It's a very powerful thing we engage in, and when we understand that this thing that we're able to do wasn't invented or created on this earth.
Yeah.
You know, whales sing, birds sing, stars sing.
Yeah. Yeah.
And we create music. We create our own songs unto the glory of God. How would you ever pick up your instrument ever again in vain?
That's right.
Even if it's a wedding gig, even if it is just, you know, it's a Wednesday night, Tuesday night prayer service, and you know, can you come and sing 2 songs?
Yeah, man.
Just 2 songs. Man, this is nuclear weaponry we have, that we're able to touch people, like go right through, separate the bone from the marrow.
Yeah. Yes. Amen.
I don't know if you guys have ever heard that.
That's
cool. It's brilliant. It's perfect.
Yeah.
Exactly right.
Well, I think it's a good place to wrap up. I think I'd like to get you guys back on when Dave, when you're back home.
when you don't see the cars going by me.
Nah, you know, hey, traffic is cool. Hey, you know, like, you know, they have all these videos now, like they have all these shorts on TikTok, Instagram, everywhere. They have like kids playing video games underneath because people's attention span is so short. If you're not instantly grabbed, like it grabs their eye socket attention.
Yeah.
So that they actually will take 3 seconds to listen to the person speaking. So this just helps. Maybe more people will watch it because there's always cars going by.
Yeah.
That's great.
But I'd love to get you back when you're in your studio and you guys can we can get into some of the technical and musical side of how you do what you do.
Yeah, that'd be great.
And to help these young musicians that, you know, man, I want to be a player, but you know, I've been told, rightfully so, man, don't move to Nashville because there's 7 zillion people over there. And, you know, you don't have to move now. I mean, we have the internet. You can get discovered. Yeah. I mean, there's so many musicians that are getting discovered just working in their house. Oh, that was the one thing I wanted to say to reinforce what you were saying, Dave. I got to have a conversation with Leland Sklar, which you probably working with Stephen Chapman.
Yeah, I haven't worked in the studio with him, but yes.
Yeah, that is a cool old bird, man. And he talked about going to lecture at Berkeley and telling the kids, like, get those stinking things out of your head and start playing with the people around you. You know, he's like, everybody's playing by themselves in a room, and like Kris said, they're getting really good, but then you put them in a band environment and they don't know how to function because they don't know how to listen.
Right. That's true.
Yeah.
You know, so I think we need to bring the wedges back, man. I mean, if only but for rehearsals. I think the wedges are important, you know?
Well, we're going to do a concert. I was trying to get Kris to come up and do it in DC, December 8th. And Steve Brewster is playing drums. Tom Lane is on guitar. Jim Frazier's on guitar and singing.
You're playing mandolin.
I'll play some guitar.
He's playing
whatever.
upright bass.
So on the text thread, it was like, you guys can have wedges or in-ears. Okay, so these are all, you know, kind of my age peers. Not one of them wanted in-ears. It's like, we want wedges, because it was like, we can have wedges at this concert? Oh, you know, what a breath of fresh air for us.
Y'all, I feel like they're punking you. You're going to show up, there's going to be in-ears, and everybody's going to have wedge salads. But like, no, that was the food. That was the food. Do you want a wedge salad? Because you're getting in-ears.
Oh, you're hurting my feelings now. You're hurting me.
Yeah.
No, I tell you, man, like these kids, it's, you know, that's why we got to educate these babies, man. We got to show them, like, oh man, no, playing when you can feel the music. When you can feel the music, that's just, there ain't nothing like it, man.
Nothing like it.
I hate playing a big stage and you got all these double 18s, but the stage is solid and they're so far away you can't feel the bass. So you're just like, you feel like you're playing in midair. You know, I'm just like,
Not to keep going here, but one of the things, I'm at a pretty small little church, and one of the things that we always say is if we can't hear them singing and worshiping, then we're too loud. And so, like, you know, again, we're at a small place, so it's like we've got to be mindful of that because we don't want to just drown out everything with just the band. And that's been a really good discipline because it's not easy, you know. to really dynamically sometimes hold back just to see, you know, we're not the point here. The point is to worship the Lord, right? That's the point.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so it's really good to hear the people singing and worshiping the Lord. And I think that goes back to even the in-ears. You know, sometimes we can just isolate ourselves so much that we're on this little island over here and God's doing something and we're completely missing out. And, you know, why be there then, you know, at that point? Let them play the stem, you know, of the guitar that they have. You know, at that point, you know, we need to, the point is to be a part of the whole body of Christ. You know, it's not like this little thing. And then if we can discipline ourselves, and even Larry Goss back in the day when I took his class, I mean, he would say, this is not about you as a piano player in the studio. He would always tell us to hold back, play less, you know, let the orchestra have their moments, let this have their thing. So I just think that all kind of comes together of just, you know, in a worship setting, especially that it's not about me. You know, at that moment, it's about what the Lord's doing, and my eyes need to be on Him, and especially at that moment, and not on me. You know, I don't want to miss out what God's doing because I'm just oblivious to it. You know, worried about my part or whatever. And I think that's something that, you know, maybe I think the Lord's going to start doing again. You know, freeing.
Oh yeah.
That. So.
That's a great that's a great place to wrap it up, y'all. Where can they find y'all's production? You guys have a website? You know, I know you're on social. I'll find your socials and I'll put them here underneath. So folks can follow you. But you guys have a website?
Our own website. Yeah, we have our own website. Each of us have our own individual site, so they can check us out there. You know, most of the time, Instagram's good for me, or Facebook.
Yeah, you've been sharing some good stuff on Instagram lately, Kris. I've been digging it. So I'm not sure if I'm following you, Dave, but you know I will be before the day's over, and I'll put stuff up there so we can stay connected. But y'all, thank you so much for this conversation. I can't wait to have you back. This is going to be like the false ending, so I'm going to end it here, and then I'll want to just have a quick word with you guys. So, y'all, this has been Dave Cleveland, Kris Crunk.
Awesome.
Blessed to be here. So remember, Jesus loves you, and so do I. Take care.
Yes. Amen.
Amen. See y'all.
It'll fade out. Okay. It faded out, and now I'm back. So I hope you guys enjoyed that interview. Downey, you definitely want to go back and watch that from the beginning. And now that we've aired this interview, we will definitely have them back on, hopefully live in real time, because that interview was actually recorded a couple weeks ago. So, but yeah, I would love to get them live in real time so you guys can ask them questions. So, and we'll of course plan that plenty of advance so you guys would know. So like, oh man, I got to make sure I get this interview, because, you know, like Caps, Downey, Rudy, if you guys want to, you know, get some questions to me beforehand, I'll make sure that we ask their questions, or maybe even figure out a way to bring you on live real quick. So, but yeah, Rudy, I was going to say the inner phenomenon, I think, has just happened from as church bands have gotten more sophisticated and grown. But your average church used to be 75 to 125. You know, when you get 4 musicians playing in a small room, it's just hard to control. And then of course everybody wants to hear themselves, and you have singers, and of course back in the day it was choirs. So when you have 100 decibels on the stage, it's just hard to control the room. So there's trade-offs to it. There's, you know, everything is Thomas Sowell. Everything in life is trade-offs. So with managing the volume in the house, which, you know, honestly, and even that just comes from ignorance, from musicians just not being trained properly, because they think, you know, hey man, it doesn't sound good if it's not loud. Garbage. I was watching something. There was some video I saw of a live recording, and the drummer was playing so, like, you could see his stick was coming up this much off the snare, just pop. Just, he knew, I don't have to shwaka, you know, you don't have to pop this thing every time, because there was a lot of other musicians. I think they had live strings and live brass, so he was playing very conservative. He was very much controlling his volume. And I was like, oh my gosh, if we could have that, we could take the drummers out of the cage. If we could have the guitar players not turn their amps up to 7 with a 20-watt amp, we could, you know, put the amps back in the room. There's a thing I'm hoping to get next year. I'm hoping to not only interview but collaborate and get some mentoring from Phil Driscoll, because he's done some tremendous videos talking about the power of actually stopping the frequencies of drums. He's like, you're not even letting it minister properly because you're blocking what those frequencies are there to do. And I said, that is scientifically and physically accurate. It's accurate. You're not actually getting the frequency. You're getting a representation of the frequency. Oh yeah, of course, Downey. Yeah, because you have to mic it, and then man, I got a great sounding drum kit. So you get a $2,000 drum kit, or $3,000 drum kit with $1,000 worth of cymbals, and then you put $300 worth of drum mics on it. So it sounds like garbage. You have a great drummer or a good drummer and a decent kit or a great kit, and then you don't have somebody that knows how to gate, or you can completely change the tonality of the drums. So, yeah, that was a little aside. What's up, Saint Questions? Coming in there at the last minute. Blessings. I'm not sure, Saint Questions, which YouTube channel are you watching this on? Are you watching this on the Soul Vitamins or the Gabriel Bello? But we're about to wrap this up here because we went live. We did go live. We went live late. I forgot to hit send on that text. But hey, better late than never, right? Oh, cool. Well, thanks. I don't know if you're subscribed to my channel or, but thank you for watching. I don't know if I actually know you. I don't know. I don't recognize the first time I've seen I don't recognize your handle. So if you're actually somebody that I know, I apologize. If you're not somebody if you're somebody that I don't know, welcome. You say arigato like we say arigato. Domo. Okay. Alrighty. And now it's like, okay, now we got 10 folks. Now we have more people than we did, and then we had the interview going. So I want to, let's start asking questions. That's who I thought it might be. Thought it might be you. Saint Questions. I like it. No. Hold up. Let me,
Domine Saint Questions. Domine Saint Questions.
Sorry, I just had to show off this really cool mic that Cloud Vocal. I have to do a review question. See, now I'm just saying Saint Questions. So a review video on this cool microphone that I got just a couple weeks ago, and I'm still working it out. But yeah, make sure you guys go back and watch the interview. I'm going to get their Instagram handles. Let me go to Instagram and get their handles. So they are, I'm pretty sure Chris's is Mount Clear Productions. So we didn't put it in there, but we're going to put it in the comments. That is Kris Crunk's Instagram. So make sure you go find him over there, and then let's get Dave Cleveland's over there. Yeah, his is, Dave Cleveland 1. So there's Dave Cleveland. Follow them both on Instagram. I think that's where they're the most active. I'm not sure if they have YouTube channels, but they're pretty active. Kris is always sharing really cool music production stuff on his thing. And, Dave Cleveland, he posted, oh my gosh, yeah, hold up. I got to just show you this. This is the kind of stuff you'll see over there. So hold up. There it is. That's Dave's. That's Dave's post from a week ago, and you could see my comment there. Just one more, because that's the guitar players legit have addictions. They have addiction problems. My brother's a bass player, and he has issues. So yeah, he's posting some Tea Garden mics. He's showing some of his mic setups. And this is Kris Crunk's page, so you can see him doing string sections with all sorts of dope people. But most of his stuff that he does is in the stories. Most of his everyday stuff is in the stories, so you just got to make sure that you go over there and tune in. So I am going to go say hello to my wife, who got home just a little while ago, and I'm going to try to come back here in about an hour to do some music production here on just the Gabriel Bello music channel. So come back for that. We've got a lot of music that we've got to go through, and we have this the orchestra, plywood instrumental orchestra. Yes sir. Mega gear junkie. Yeah, it's I found this out on a saxophone forum. They said, "Oh man, he's got that gas," and I'm like, "Gas?" I was like, "Hey guys, I'm new to this forum jargon. Like, what is gas?" And they're like, "Gear acquisition syndrome." Who's got gas up in here? I bet you $5 that Downey and maybe even Cap's got a case of gas. So, yeah, goodness gracious, I don't even want to zoom in right now. And it's funny, like I have a lot of my equipment out of the room, and this room is still just exploding with. I mean, like you can see it over here. There's stuff there. There's stuff there. There's stuff there. There's stuff over there. There's stuff there. It's bonkers. And like I said, I have stuff in the closet. I have stuff out there in the living room. Oh, yeah, definitely come back in an hour because I've got some By Faith updates that I got to show you guys. Chronic. He's got a chronic case. Oh, wait, hold up. We got to do, Chris, this is for you, man. We got to.
Stop it!
Yeah, you got to stop that, you know.
Nine, 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 nine.
No more gas. All right, y'all. I hope you have enjoyed this episode of Soul Vitamins / Gabriel Bello Music's Behind the Gospel Music. Lord willing, we will see you here next Tuesday around 7 o'clock with my brother Jonathan Rushing, and we'll have some more Soul Vitamins for you. Tune in here in about an hour to Gabriel Bello Music, and we'll be live with some music production. So remember, Jesus loves you. So do we. Take care.